The circus has always been a focal point of awe and exotic entertainment for centuries. There is no doubt that this era was the epitome of electrifying experience. But what really made these grand performances so captivating? The use of wild animals from different parts of the world. Crowds were drawn to bears, elephants, tigers, and lions performing tricks that had never been seen before. However, the greatest show on earth hid behind a dark curtain that concealed horrifying realities. My thesis: the circus, with its exploitation of animal performers, disregarded the responsibilities of humans to protect the rights of animals during the 19th and 20th centuries, and shows how animal abuse shaped the public's perception of animal rights. The first performance troupe to resemble modern-day circuses was originated in England by a man named Philip Astley in 1770. The show included stellar horsemanship, clowns, and tightrope walkers under the classic giant circus tent. The success of these performances inspired John B. Ricketts to replicate the same concept and introduce the circus to America in 1793. The immediate prosperity of this form of entertainment can be attributed to the fact that no one had ever seen it before. It wouldn't be until American animal handler Isaac V. von Amberg that the animal circus would be born. In 1833, he introduced the performance component and brought wild animals into the center of the ring, changing the future of the circus industry. The audiences welcomed this new form of entertainment, revealing the public's perception at the time. As time passed, animal welfare became a concern for the people attending circuses. In 1880, Salamander, P.T. Barnum's fire horse, was reportedly being harmed by his act of jumping through a burning hoop. Ultimately, this allegation was disproven by Barnum himself. Nevertheless, this encounter demonstrates that despite the circus show's success, there were people who simply did not agree with the morality of it. Despite a segment of the public's simmering concerns for circus animal welfare, the majority at this time expressed their love for it. Americans fell in love with an elephant named Jumbo, who traveled with Barnum's circus. He was known as a gentle giant with his tame nature and apparent love for children. Jumbo met an unfortunate demise when he was fatally struck in 1885 by a train in St. Thomas, Ontario. Thousands of people visited this beloved animal's grave because of their adoration for him. The public's reaction to his passing highlights a certain fondness that the public had for the circus industry. In describing Jumbo's trainer, Matthew Scott, circus owner P.T. Barnum says, "Scott ruled him by kindness. Scott declares he never used a prod on Jumbo and never governed him except by kindness." However, Jumbo's experience with his trainer was rare, and it became known that there were so many more instances of harm, both to people and animals. In 1914, a circus was taken through the town of Little Pedlington. People were drawn to the lions being displayed in cages, but unfortunately, children poked and yelled at them. In the newspaper, it was stressed that show business had left the big cats with no protection or freedom. This highlights a sort of callousness from the public, as it seems not many spoke up about the animals' obvious maltreatment. There were concerns that observing the treatment of animals at circuses would have negative impacts on children. In 1921, an article from Dawson News titled "To Teach Children Kindness" urged children to refrain from attending the circus. This was due to the rising perception that the wild animals put on display were harshly treated. Despite providing entertainment, the public recognized that it was not entirely responsible or right. Renowned animal trainer Clyde Beatty introduced a level of respect for circus animals. A 1933 newspaper article described Beatty's tactics and his personal feelings towards the tigers and lions he risked his life to share a ring with. Dubbed as the man who flirts with death, he constantly worked with the animals, but never made the mistake of trusting them with his life. The newspaper would state, "Beatty doesn't love his lions and tigers. He respects them, but doesn't trust them for a minute." Animals have boundaries that people have the responsibility to respect and be wary of. Unfortunately, most times those boundaries were overlooked and often pushed the animal to act out. A little boy met his untimely end when trying to feed peanuts to an elephant at a circus in 1950. A 27-year-old elephant in the Ringling Bros Circus, named Dolly, was said to have suddenly turned killer. She crushed the boy with her trunk, and the decision was made to have her euthanized. In actuality, Dolly probably did not become a killer instantaneously. More likely, her behavior changed over time because of the constant stress of a circus. Research conducted at the University of Bristol School of Biological Sciences explains that extreme reactions stem as results to high amounts of stress and lack of positive stimulation. This can be seen in the case of Lily and Isa. elephants who escaped in 1975 after being frightened by a loud noise from their circus for 3 weeks in Hugo, Oklahoma. The public sought to assign blame for the incident. People felt that wild animals like Lily and Isa were meant to be controlled, and when that expectation wasn't met, a public outcry ensued. Solid proof of abuse and unacceptable living conditions are imperative for spreading truths about what goes on behind the scenes. This is what ADI, Animal Defenders International, officers went undercover to investigate. Chipperfield Enterprises, well-known circus establishments in Oxfordshire, UK, were investigated from 1996 to 1998. Chipperfield Enterprises had been exposed, and after discovering the truth, the public was discouraged completely from supporting the business. There were still many supporters overseas. In America, circuses were continuing to be seen as profitable shows that entertained the masses. An incident in 1997 from Spokane, Washington would drastically change this perspective. 200 children would be exposed to the brutality of a Bengal tiger killing its trainer in the middle of a show. Reverend Blaine Resco, witness to the ordeal, would say, "This animal grabbed him by the neck and just dragged him all around. They tried to beat him off, but they couldn't get him off until he was dead." Unnecessary violence is always a risk at the circus, with wild animals who are stressed and agitated constantly. The transportation of the circus and all its performers is another major contributor to the stress endured by circus animals. Tom Ryder, an ex-employee of Chipperfield Enterprises, came forward in 1999 to expose the horrible conditions that the animals were forced to deal with. He explained in his statement the effects of traveling. "The elephants were in the worst state I had seen them. The undersides of their bellies were shaking, twitching with stress." The truths Ryder revealed highlighted the extreme physical torment that circus animals undergo simply in traveling from city to city before they are even tasked to perform. In time, more circus employees would come forward to share their experiences and provide statements. Samuel Haddock worked for the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, on and off for many years. He told his story in 2009 and would share the extreme training techniques he both saw and conducted. Haddock explained training for baby elephants. Loud rock and roll music is played to drown out the baby screaming and to get them used to the music played in the circus. Haddock shared his feelings of regret when saying, "Towards the end of my career, when someone would ask me what I did for a living and I'd say that I was an elephant trainer for Ringling, the first thing they would ask is it true you have to beat elephants to make them perform those tricks? I stopped telling people what I did for a living. I was ashamed." Haddock's statements describe that stunning circus acts came from years of training and harsh repetition and abuse. In 2012, a circus employee would share a perspective that had been looming over the ring for years. "I think people do enjoy seeing the animals at the circus and how they react to humans," he said. "We had horses, bears, lions, and elephants, and they were nicely looked after. But that was a different time, and we have heard recently about people beating their animals up. That people do not like." This was a turning point in perspective for both circus employees and the public. People adored the animals and the shows before they knew what was really going on. It wasn't a moral act anymore to have animals involved in the circus. In recent years, circuses focus more heavily on human performances, such as Cirque du Soleil and others. This shift in entertainment and responsibility demonstrates how public perception has changed drastically over time. From early years when audiences were in awe of circus animal performances to present times when public expectation is focused on human stunts and showmanship. Bills put in place like the Animal Welfare Act and Endangered Species Act came because of the public's growing awareness of their responsibility to protect animal rights. The United States Fish and Wildlife Services included many circus animals under the protection of the ESA, showing long-term effects of the concern for circus animal welfare. Growing recognition of the animal's plight brought sweeping actions that changed the circus industry as we know it today. The big top couldn't hide the show's horrible abuse of its exotic animals. The truth would permanently change perception of the greatest show on earth.